Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over a quick case study, something that happened a couple of weeks back, but something that happens time and time again in the market. It's going to rustle a few feathers, so stay tuned. But it's what the downsides and pitfalls are of staying with your employer for too long. So as mentioned, this is a case study that happened 3 weeks ago now. What it was, a gentleman was in a position, senior level position within my industry, and heavily held back by his current employer. So it's very top heavy within the business. He couldn't progress up one grade, let alone two that he was supposed to be going up. So this gentleman come to me, he was looking for an associate level position, felt strong enough, backed himself enough to go for those level roles. So I said, by all means, if you feel confident enough in yourself and you feel you've got what it takes, then let's see if we can get you some interviews at this level and see what happens. Ultimately, it's always down to the candidate to sell themselves to a certain extent. But as I say, he was operating at senior level, and normally in our industry you get principal level and associate. He pretty much skipped a grade and was offered 2 jobs at associate level. So he was offered a number of roles. Some of them were at principal level, some of them were at associate level. But safe to say, the job opportunities that he did get, the offers, the 2 best offers that he got, one of them was for 25k above what he was on, the other one was for 27k above what he was on. Now this gentleman was with his current employer for 10 plus years, and whilst this is not always the case, I see it time and time again as a recruiter, whereby employees, the longer they tend to stay in employment, especially 10, 15, 20 plus years, the more and more they're left behind, not in terms of career development skills and everything that goes along with career development, but also in terms of compensation, salary, the package, everything is left behind, because unfortunately I tend to find that the employers get a bit complacent. They take that employee for granted. They just, after a while they just think they're going to be with them forever and a day, and unfortunately they don't progress them how they should do. They don't look after them how they should do. Obviously that candidate then goes to the market, see what's out there, and obviously sometimes, like they did in this example, got a hefty pay rise. So now worth saying, this candidate, he wasn't desperate to move on. He wasn't desperately looking, but he was aware that he wasn't being, perhaps recognised for the level of, he wasn't being paid for the level that he was operating at. So there was a bit of a disparity there. But it's worth saying that, I'd say the sweet spot out there in terms of what employers look for and what's passable in terms of loyalty on a CV is anything sort of 4 to 6 years. I'd say that's a decent amount of time with an employer on your CV. Every 1 or 2 years, if you're moving on, that's too short. You'll burn bridges. You won't really see projects through to the end, in my industry anyway, and it'll probably bite you on the arse in the end, because when that employer goes to interview you 10 years down the line and you've had a job every 1 to 2 years, they're probably going to be disheartened in the fact that what's going to make this guy spend any decent length of time with us. So that's too short. That's on the lower end of the spectrum. I'd say the sweet spot is between 4 to 6 years. Don't get me wrong, 10 plus years is not always a bad thing if the employer's really looking after you. They're having regular appraisals, having regular reviews, and they're keeping up to what is sort of industry sort of salary average. So, but it's just unfortunately the odd employers, they, like I said earlier, they take people for granted. They get a bit complacent, don't look after them how they should, and then they end up like this gentleman was, 25k below what he should have been on. So that was a case study that I had 3 weeks ago. That's not always obviously the norm. The norm is probably very much, perhaps 4, 5, 6k pay rises people achieve. But this just goes to show, and there's another person that we're working on right now as well in a very similar position that already has an offer for 10k above what they're on. But it just goes to show that, sometimes out there, not all the time, but sometimes, if you spend too long with the wrong employer, you can end up heavily below what you should be on in terms of salary. Hope this video has brought some clarity on that side of things. If you like it, drop us a like. If you've got any comments on it, drop them below, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.